Thanks for joining me. It's good to see you. My name is Jerrel. I develop games for a living. At the moment, I'm also running an archery course, so if you're in need of any advice for archery, feel free to ask, and I can give some tips and helpful advice. So I want to ask the question, is the Switch 2 worth owning if you already have a Switch? Side by side, you can see there's a significant difference with the original model, the Switch, versus the Switch 2 that has just come out. So I don't want to tell you what to think and how to think, and you're going to see a lot of people on the internet will try to do that. They will tell you what to think, and they don't want you to think for yourself. They will tell you what to parrot from their YouTube channel, and they'll send you out, try to make you just repeat whatever they said. That is the opposite of what I want to do here. So I'm going to share with you information regarding the comparison of these two. I will share my personal thoughts, and I hope that you will come to your own conclusions based on what you see and hear, and that you'll share your thoughts with me. I am interested in hearing from you. So before we get started taking a look at the differences between the Switch and Switch 2 and the reasons why the Switch 2 may be worth owning if you already own a Switch, I'd like to share with you something pretty interesting. Take a look at this. This is a compound bow from the 1960s. This is one of the earliest compound bows that was ever made. It's actually quite primitive. They've taken basically just a flat bow, they've made it significantly thicker to reduce the amount of bending of the limb, and they've added some wheels here that eventually would be referred to as cams. You can see it's quite covered in spider webs. It's very old. I don't shoot this. This is a wall hanger, an antique piece. You shouldn't use this in the same way that you shouldn't use a Sega Game Gear that has not had its capacitors replaced, as it may destroy the console. So with this particular instrument, you can see they loop the strings back and forth, and they rely on the wheels here. This is extremely primitive, but it is a step forward from primitive bows. And while it is an advancement, it sucked. It was not good at what it was doing, and it was a bit of an experiment. Every step forward, every potential evolution is an experiment, and you iterate on it and you improve upon it. So this was not great. This is quite rough, but it does work. So this came from 60s, and it's one of the oldest. That is basically one of the absolute oldest compound bows that you will ever see. Now let's take a look at a modern iteration, and this is a compound bow designed specifically for hunting that is a step forward. Actually, it's a few steps forward. But we'll keep things simple and say it's the next step in the advancement of the compound bow. You can see that the cams are bigger. They are not just a round wheel. There is a specific shape to them designed to allow the tension to let off as the user draws the string back. The user is able to hold the weight of the cam system. There are advanced targeting systems and a wicker biscuit that allows the arrow to pass through without obstruction, without the vanes bumping on any material. So this is a huge advancement. You would say there are more bells and whistles on this, but this would not exist without this existing first. And so it's important to understand that and recognize these do the same thing. They accomplish the same thing. But this does it way better. It's a much better user experience. Yes, this can launch. It's upside down now. A little bit persnickety about that. This does launch an arrow. You can shoot this. This also launches an arrow, but it's a way better experience. It's a much more elegant solution. Hopefully you keep that in mind as we discuss the Switch and the Switch 2. So I will share my thoughts on these devices and explain what the actual benefits are to owning a Switch 2. What I personally feel is one of the most important things about the Switch 2 is backward compatibility. Your Switch 1 library, whether that would be physical or digital, will work on the Switch 2, but you will get significantly better performance from your games. Sometimes you will see that the Switch games are stuttery, the frame rate is not good, the games are choppy when you are playing them. On the Switch 2, the original Switch games will run with much better frame rate, they'll be smoother, and you will have significantly faster loading times depending on the game. Some games the loading times are a little bit faster, and in other games the loading times are significantly faster. Over time, more Switch games will get Switch 2 updates. Right now there are only a few, but as we have seen with games like Pokemon Violet and Scarlet, you do not have to pay for those updates. They are rolled out as if they are just an update to the game, but it allows for use of the Switch 2's features such as better resolution in terms of going up to 4K and using HDR, but that depends on the developer and the game. In my personal opinion, the Switch 2 is much more comfortable to hold and use in handheld mode for the most part. With the original Switch, I have never been in a situation where I felt this was very comfortable to use, and I'm always trying to shift my grip and find a way to just be comfortable. And so I have a number of peripherals that add grips to try to make it more comfortable to hold. If you have smaller hands, if you are letting a younger person use this, then the original Switch may be more comfortable because it is a smaller console. The Switch Lite may be more comfortable for a child, but for someone who does not find the Switch comfortable to hold, the Switch 2 is comfortable because you're able to grip the bottom of the Joy-Con 2 and position your hands. Thus, I find it very comfortable. However, if you're sitting back on the couch, the weight of the console, you will start to feel the weight after about 45 minutes to an hour of usage. You will start to feel that it's quite a bit heavier than the Switch. So the actual new features that you see that are visible and usable and practical on Switch 2, Game Share, which will allow you to share games in terms of gameplay, moment-to-moment gameplay. This is not a universal sharing. What Game Share is dependent on the game itself. The developer has to develop the game, and I will share in my next video a game that uses Game Share, and I'll show you how it works. So basically, if you own a game, if the game supports Game Share, you can wirelessly beam it out to other consoles. You can even Game Share to the original Switch or Switch 2, and you can play a racing game, party game, board games. And the benefit to this is that you can see your own screen and the other player can see their own screen. So say, for example, if you are playing a Warriors game and your characters go to different parts of the environment, you do not have to use split screen. You now have a whole screen to yourself. For example, there currently is not a Warriors game that uses Game Share, though I suspect the upcoming Age of Imprisonment will most likely, I would believe they would use Game Share, but that has not been announced. That's my personal wish. I really enjoy the Warriors games, but I don't play them solo. I use that as an excuse to hang out with friends, so we do co-op, and we hang out, we can catch up, talk about our work week, and we'll play a Warriors game. It would be great to have that in Game Share because it's nice to just have more real estate for your character. Next would be Game Chat, and Game Chat is interesting. It's really for people that want to have a social experience with friends and family. They can use the camera to chat. I suspect in the future there will be game experiences that use Game Chat more thoroughly in terms of players needing to talk and discuss and pass information back and forth as part of the core function of gameplay. I know that as a game developer, I personally want to use Game Chat in that respect. For example, players need to share information in order to pilot some sort of giant mechanical robot together, or solve a puzzle, or explore an environment and solve puzzles together. I believe that would be very exciting. Next would be the optical sensors in the Joy-Con 2 that allow these to be used a mouse. This is very exciting. It seems like it shouldn't be that exciting, but it actually is. We are going to see very creative, very interesting uses of the Joy-Con 2 due to those optical sensors. Both of the Joy-Con 2 have that, so players can use two mice. We have the HD rumble. You will be able to, again, dependent on the game, feel the surface that you are moving this on, as HD rumble is able to create that sense of simulation and engagement with games. I think that's going to be very exciting. Now, major AAA title games like Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy will come to the Switch 2. This is what is going to be the selling point for many people. There's many people out there who do not care about game share, game chat. They don't care about the mouse. What they want is AAA titles. This is excellent. We have seen the performance of these games is great. The games look fantastic. They do not look like a significant visual downgrade in terms of presentation from other platforms. And of course, there have to be some concessions in order to take into account that, yes, the Switch 2 is not as powerful as the PlayStation 5, not as powerful as the Xbox 720 or 1260 or whatever number they're on right now. But it's still an elegant solution and it works great. Cyberpunk is out right now. People are playing and enjoying that. You can see for yourself, it's a fantastic experience. More and more AAA titles will come to Switch 2. Recently, Resident Evil 9 was announced. It was not announced that it would come to Switch 2, but I would suspect that it would come to Switch 2. Maybe I will find Capcom's address and I'll just send them a bunch of fan mail non-stop just to annoy them and say, hey, please bring this to Switch 2. Major companies love when you spam them with requests like that. It's their favorite thing in the world. So what I find is also quite a consumer-friendly feature is that you can take your original Joy-Con from the original Switch and you can actually pair them to your Switch 2, so you can use your Joy-Con with the Switch 2. I'll post a link in my description where I show you how to do that in case you are not familiar with how to do that. And it works great. This means that if you already own a bunch of Joy-Con, you can bring those over to the Switch 2 and you can use those so you can play multiplayer games with your friends and family. Again, you can play your old games on Switch 2 and they will be better. It's better load times, better performance. It's exciting. That's personally what interests me most, is a Switch that actually plays games very, very well. And that is a huge selling point for me on Switch 2. It's very easy to play your digital games back and forth. So let's say that you've purchased a bunch of games that you own digitally on the Switch, which I have done. So these consoles implement something called a virtual game card system, where your digital games are now turned into virtual game cards. Let's say you own One Piece Pirate Warriors 4 on here, and you play that, you're playing One Piece, then you pick up the Switch 2, so you say, okay, I'll transfer over everything. You can set that down, and now you boot this up, and it'll say, do you want to load the virtual cartridge in? It takes about 10-15 seconds. It'll show a little animation of a virtual card being plugged into the system, and now you can play One Piece Pirate Warriors 4 on here. Now let's say you're not using this Switch anymore. Give that to your cousin, give that to your friend, and they want to play One Piece Pirate Warriors on there. All they have to do is open this up and say, yes, I'd like to load the virtual game cartridge on there, and then you can play that on your Switch. But you can't use them at the same time. It treats it as if it's one cartridge because you only own one copy of the game. You've paid for one copy, so you get to use one copy because it is your game. So you can still use them back and forth. It only takes 10-15 seconds for it to transfer the cartridge virtually, but it means you can only use one at a time. So you can't play these Pirate Warriors 4 on both at the same time. So that's basically everything you need to know. Any peripherals that you have where the Joy-Con plugs into them, like the leg strap, Toy-Con, those will not work Switch 2 because the Joy-Con 2 are bigger. Also, the kickstand is nice and functional. It actually extends through the entire length of the console, so it's significantly more stable. It stays in place quite well. The build quality just feels very nice, just fantastic. One thing to note that I have had an issue with is that the Switch 2 dock did not work on one of my televisions. It's an older television that is a 3D display, stereoscopic. The dock would not be detected on that, so I used a different, more modern television display, and the dock worked on there. So those are all the points that I would point out, and hopefully you can pick out for yourself whether you feel the Switch 2 is worth owning or not. I don't want to influence your opinion on that. For me personally, I really like owning it because now Switch games run great. The performance is very nice. Loading is faster. That's my favorite, my most important thing about it. But as a game developer, I'm very much looking forward to using Game Share. I didn't really fully comprehend what Nintendo had accomplished with that. A while back, I had done some videos discussing that feature. This is long before Nintendo had even revealed Switch 2. And I was saying, I would love if Nintendo built something into the operating system where they could use other consoles as a second screen. And that, I said, that's my number one wish, but I know Nintendo's not going to do that because it would take a huge amount of work. But there's so much that you can do with games. There's so much creativity. And if you can't tell, I'm absolutely ecstatic. I'm just over the moon because Nintendo has implemented that feature, and I'm in awe. I'm in absolute awe because that is going to open up so much creativity for developers. I'm beside myself. I'm so excited for Game Share because it's not just about Game Share. It's about creating asymmetrical gameplay experiences that are going to be interesting and creative. So thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you're doing well. Be well. Please take care of yourselves. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, hey, it's summer, baby. Get to the beach, work on that tan, go surfing, take your friends to the beach, have fun, have a little barbecue. Years ago, when we were teenagers, my friends and I went to a lake in the summertime, and a friend of mine wanted to cook our hot dogs on his engine block. He had a Jeep, instead of barbecuing them. So he did, and the hot dog smelled like exhaust. So he took a bite out of it, but the rest of us did not. It didn't seem right. It didn't seem right. Take care.